James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
Yes, you do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Are you ready for a big Wednesday show? Well, here we go. The Bill Press Show, Wednesday, July 8. How about it? Here with you on Free Speech TV and on Talker TV. That's our worldwide video stream, youtube.com/Talker, TAWKR TV. Thanks for joining us today. Lots of news in a lot of different areas. The Iran deadline over in Vienna has long gone, 24 hours late now, and yet the United States and Iran and our P5+1 partners have all said, let's continue talking because we're so close that maybe we can make this deal in a week or so or less. President Obama last night assuring Senate Democrats at the White House that there will be a good deal or no deal at all. He is not going to make a bad deal. Bill Cosby heard yesterday that a deposition from 10 years ago, 2005, has been discovered where he admits that he went out and got Quaaludes to give to women in order to have sex with them. Several women have said this proves that their accusations against Bill Cosby are correct, verified. But he's still got his defenders, including Whoopi Goldberg, who says that Cosby is still innocent until proven guilty, and they cannot prove that he was is a rapist. Eric Holder, on another front, has said, you know what? He's no longer Attorney General, but he can see that the Department of Justice could make a deal with Edward Snowden, which would permit him to come back to this country without facing years and years in federal prison. Jimmy Carter stunned a lot of people yesterday, former President Carter, by saying he is convinced that Jesus, were he alive today, would approve of same-sex marriage. And Hillary just gave her first TV interview and said nothing. Give us your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us for this Wednesday edition of The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a tentacle. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the Chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects, like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Jimmy Carter says if he were alive today, President. No, all right, let's start over again. If he were alive today, says Jimmy Carter, Jesus Christ would approve same-sex marriage and marry John the Baptist. All right. Well, he didn't go that far. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? We're just getting started here. Wednesday, July 8th. Great to see you. And good to have you on board for the next 3 hours as we take off here from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, and reach out to you all across this great land of ours. Isn't it great? We can be with you on the West Coast, on the Great Plains, in the Deep South, in the Northeast. We're there everywhere on Free Speech TV. We're there everywhere on your local progressive talk radio station. God love them. Not enough of them out there. And if you don't have a progressive station near you, don't forget, you got 2 great apps you can just download, and you're in Radio Land wherever you travel, wherever you live. It's the TuneIn app or iHeartRadio. They're both free. They both work, and we're on both of them. And most importantly, again, on your local progressive talk radio station. Thanks for joining us today. We've got lots of talk. You know what? It's one of those days where there's no great big breaking news.
Yeah.
But there's lots of stuff going on.
A lot of things happening.
A lot of things happening in a lot of different areas. And that's our job. Keep on top of all of that. Nothing escapes our, laser-like focus. We'll tell you what's going on and then open up the phones and give you a chance to tell us what you think about it all. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. Or you can just send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Lots you're going to want to talk about, starting with Bill Cosby this morning. But first, let's say hello to our team, Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey,
yes,
happy Wednesday.
I know, Jamie Benson. You got a call? You got a problem? You got a complaint? Jamie's your guy, 866-55-PRESS.
He's thrilled you mentioned complaints.
Yes,
he said, please, no problems.
Mm-hmm. And Monty Kensler on the job again today, filling in for Cyprian as our videographer of the day. It's only a matter of time. Big celebration in Los Angeles yesterday for the Women's USA World Cup champions. And it's only a matter of time before, we just don't know the date yet, before they will be invited to the White House. But the president didn't wait. He got on the phone yesterday to talk to the coach and to the star player, scoring 3 goals on Sunday.
Hat trick, baby.
Here he is. Yeah, here he is for the coach.
Hey, Coach.
Mr. President, how are you?
I'm not as good as you, but I'm pretty good.
And then, of course, he says hello to Carly Lloyd.
Carly, what have you been eating?
Wheaties.
What's your secret?
Yeah, what's your secret?
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Coach.
That's funny.
Maybe she's been eating those double stuffed Oreos.
Yo, maybe that's what it is.
I think that could
be. A little
be.
extra boost?
Yeah, all right. Lots going on today with, we'll get the help of David Jackson from the White House for USA Today. And then, very pleased to, Katrina vanden Heuvel, the editor and publisher of the great Nation magazine, will be here, as well as Michael Isikoff from Yahoo News, one of our country's great investigative reporters. And yep, Bill Cosby still has his defenders. Are you one of them? But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You know, you mentioned the Women's World Cup team. Friday is going to be a big day for them. They're kind of in Los Angeles, right? They came back from Canada. They're coming to New York on Friday. New York is going to have a ticker tape parade for the women. Yes, indeed.
Good.
Yeah, right?
They haven't had one of those for a long time.
I know. They usually reserve these things for like when a New York sports team wins something. But they said that it's so proud of the women and the Women's World Cup. They're going to have a ticker tape parade. Bill de Blasio made it official yesterday. Going to go along the Canyon of Heroes in Lower Manhattan. It starts at 11 a.m. on Friday. So
very
make sure
exciting.
You are tuned in for that
this week.
You gonna make a trip?
You thinking about it, huh? Yeah. Might be worth going up and checking it out.
That's great.
Just in time for breakfast, Bill. In Hong Kong, KFC is rolling out a new item. And if it's popular, they can roll it out everywhere. They are marrying together the idea of fried chicken and pizza.
Oh, no.
It's their pizza fried chicken. Basically, what this is like a chicken parmesan situation that they're putting on a bone, if it is, in fact, an actual bone. But it's going to be breaded, and it's going to have the sauce and cheese, and it's going to be fried chicken that tastes kind of like pizza. So,
you know, people keep coming up with these combinations. Just leave them alone.
Yeah. I love fried chicken. I love pizza.
Yeah, but it's like
I don't need to put fried chicken on my pizza.
I like sushi.
Yeah, right.
You know,
you see the sushi burrito? Everyone loves the sushi burrito.
Yeah, that's coming out next week.
That's a big thing. Look at Bill. Look at Bill.
Get out.
Sushi burrito. That's the meat. It's just sushi inside.
Is that Chipotle? No.
It's not Chipotle. No. But it's the thing. So this guy in China, he adopted 2 dogs, right? He's very happy. Got these 2 dogs.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if you're a dog in China and you get adopted, that's a death
Head
sentence.
for the hills.
That's a death
Well,
sentence.
he adopted these dogs. They were going to be his pets, and he had them for a couple of years, and then he said that they got a little more lively, they weren't so picky about food, and they became a little unfriendly with humans. Turns out these dogs that he had adopted and had for a couple of years, 2 years he had these dogs. Turns out they were actually black bears.
Oh my gosh.
He was just too dumb to know that someone sold him these bear cubs, tiny little bear cubs, and he thought that they were puppies, and he raised them as puppies until they became a little more aggressive. They realized, no, these aren't puppies, these are bears.
You know,
that is hilarious.
Every day there's a Darwin story.
Yeah, right.
Darwin was wrong. We are not moving forward.
Yeah.
No. I mean, look, yesterday there were 3 people gored in Pamplona for running in front of the bulls.
That's right, the running of the bulls.
How dumb do you have to be to run from the bulls and think you're not going to get gored? At least there's not a chance you're going to get gored.
I would have pegged you as...
And I am so much on the side of the bulls.
Damn straight.
Yeah, you know.
Damn
You
straight.
get in my way, you're damn right I'm going to gore
Hey,
you.
that's how it works, man. I pegged you as someone who might have done the running of the bulls at one point.
Are you kidding?
At some point.
First of all, I never got that drunk in my life. I don't think.
Well, I don't know. Let's see the
You're confusing me with
every other member of the staff.
With my boyfriend Woody.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
14 minutes after the hour now. Here, let's move right along. You're getting a little trouble there. Yes, indeed. We just touched on this yesterday, but I got to tell you, I picked up the paper this morning, and the paper. This is a newspaper. Right? Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. It's made out of paper and it has the day's news in it.
What an oddity.
You can actually get it delivered to your door. I know very, very few people ever do this anymore these days, but I still do. At any rate, picked up the Washington Post this morning, and I swore out loud when I see the headline, Whoopi Goldberg and other celebrities reiterate their support for Bill Cosby. Why? Now, look, I don't want to be too hard on this guy, but let's face it. He's a rapist, you know? I mean, that just cut right to the quick. That's what it is. Now, these rumors have been going around for a long time. about Cosby and his relations with women and taking advantage of them for sure. But last year, of course, remember, it all broke out when that comedian Hannibal Buress,
Hannibal Buress,
mentioned he made it part of his stand-up comic routine, and then people started talking about it again, and several women came out saying, yes, indeed, I had this experience where Bill Cosby spiked a drink and had sex with them against their wishes. They were unconscious, basically, or certainly totally out of it. He denied it at the time, called these women money grubbers, gold diggers, money grubbers, the whole thing, right? Liars. And a lot of people rallied around him and said, this hasn't been proven. These are just allegations. These are just rumors. And so then it kind of went away again, right? Until it pops up every once in a while. But until a couple of days ago, Associated Press got a hold of a deposition that Bill Cosby gave in a case brought by one of these women 10 years ago in Philadelphia, I believe. And the case was settled outside of court, so it never went to trial. He was never found guilty. That much is true. But in his deposition in that case, he admits that he went out and was able to get Quaaludes through some doc, I guess.
Yeah.
For the purpose of giving them to women that he wanted to have sex with, and admitting that he gave the drug to at least one woman. Now, what's missing is, right, that he actually had sex with that woman.
Right.
He didn't admit that.
He didn't admit it.
Right. And, I mean, I think it's too late for DNA evidence in this case. There's no way to prove it. But she is one of several women who have made this allegation. And now we have this deposition where he admits that he went out to get this drug for that purpose. Yeah. Now, so this keeps lingering on. Here in last May, he does give an interview on GMA where Lindsay Davis asks him about this, and Cosby just says, my problem is I can't talk about it.
I have been in this business 52 years, and I've never seen anything like this. And reality is the situation. And I can't speak.
It's almost like you don't know what he's saying.
Right.
And then she says, well, you get out there, somebody's going to ask you this question. What are you going to tell them?
I'm not sure that they will come like that. I think that many of them say, well, you're a hypocrite. You say one thing, you say the other. My point is, okay, listen to me carefully. I'm telling you where the road is out. Now, you want to go here, or you want to be concerned about who's giving you the message?
What's that mean?
No idea. Rambling. He's just rambling.
Yeah, right. So what happened with his deposition is, Associated Press and others have been trying to get this document. And Cosby was saying, no, this is I settled this case, and this should be kept secret. And the judge said, now wait a minute, this is a guy who's out there preaching morality all the time. That's his thing.
Look,
he goes in front of the NAACP and gives them a lecture. He's always doing this, right?
This was
black people.
Yeah, to black youth
community.
specifically.
Yes, right.
This is the whole thing that launched the Hannibal Buress bit. Is Bill Cosby has this reputation for going to black groups or black colleges, say, pull your damn pants up.
Yeah.
Stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
Get off the streets.
Right.
Stop acting like a thug and that type of stuff. And Hannibal Buress said, hey, man, you want to run around telling me to pull my pants up? Why don't you stop drugging women and assaulting women?
Right.
Sort of thing.
So this can have it both ways. You can't be out there as a big moralist and then have your own life hidden. So this stuff comes out, and you would think people would finally say, and some of these women finally said, at last we've got confirmation, verification for what we've been trying to tell you people, right? That this guy is lying, he's a rapist, he was taking advantage of us, and yet his celebrity friends still sticking by him yesterday. Whoopi Goldberg on The View yesterday.
I don't like snap judgments because I've had snap judgments made on me. So I'm very, very careful. And, save your texts, save your nasty comments. I don't care.
Yeah, snap judgments? You got the deposition, right? He admitted that this was... Why would anybody want to do that, right? I mean, seriously. What he's admitting, is some kind of a pervert, right? And she said again, she said also, I say this because in my opinion, and in America still, I know it's a shock, but you actually were innocent until proven guilty. Well, he's admitted his own guilt. Raven Simone, who was a little girl star on the show with Cosby, she's on The View too. She defends him yesterday.
I don't really like to talk about it that much because he's the reason I'm on this panel in the first place. He gave me my first job. But at the same time, you need the proof. And then I'll be able to give my judgment here or there.
I think you got the proof, right? I think you got the proof. You have Cosby in his own words admitting he was doing that. Now, you can't, I'm sorry. I was informed yesterday. You can't tell me that he went out and got these drugs and he went out and gave them to at least one woman, and he did to others, and never had sex with any of them. Yeah. If you have sex with a woman against her consent, drug her first, that is rape. I'm sorry. That is rape, and he ought to be tried for it. I don't care how long it's been. So I just ask you, Cosby's got his defenders. Are you one of them? 866-55-PRESS. In case you didn't get it, I'm not one of his defenders.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County, is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called The Jungle? Sorry? A place called The Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour here. Wednesday, July 8th. Talking about Bill Cosby and his defenders. You know, the one that, well, before we get into the defenders, I guess, here's one of his accusers, Beverly Johnson, with her, she's a very famous model, and she's one of the first ones who raised this issue. She yesterday said, you know, well, I've been telling you the truth, and finally, you know, eventually that's what happens.
The truth always comes to light.
Yeah, and it took a long time, but it finally did. Started to say, the one that I'm most disappointed in is Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, she's just gone out of her way, and I've always been a huge Whoopi fan. I have a picture of me and Whoopi in my office at home. But you know, she did an interview with Beverly Johnson where she went after her. Yeah. In a hostile way for even raising this issue.
This is what's so gross about this Cosby thing. I mean, the rape, or the assault, and the drugs are all bad enough, but it's the way that he and his team and his supporters have handled this throughout the whole situation, is beating up on these women and calling them names and saying that they're out for his money and saying that they're liars and saying that there's no way he's capable of this. To take these victims, these women who are coming forward, bravely coming forward, and trying to turn them into a joke and trying to belittle them and make them feel stupid, is the worst thing you could possibly do to a victim of any kind of assault.
Yeah, and we touched on this yesterday, but still, I keep coming back to, here's a guy who is at the top of his career, who was a real handsome dude at the time, right? Who could have had, let's face it, you know, like any rock star, he could have had all the sex that he wanted, anytime he wanted, from almost anybody he wanted. And he feels he has to go out and get drugs in order to drug these women and then have sex with them. This is some kind of a sick power trip. Yep. And let's just call it what it is and stop defending it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling
of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's 33 minutes after the hour. It's Wednesday, July 8th. How about it? And this is The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where we're brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. You put them all together, you get the SMART Union, headed by new President Joseph Sellers. Good men and women of the SMART Union giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Get more information about their good work at their website, smart-union.org. Here we are on this Wednesday, and we're talking about Bill Cosby, but moving on. Peter, there's a theme here.
Yeah.
I think that we have seen in the news lately.
Yeah.
And that is a whole collection of stories that make you wonder about human intelligence and make you wonder whether Darwin was right or wrong, and make you wonder whether we're really moving forward or moving backwards pretty fast. Some of the stories, like yesterday, you might repeat a couple of these for all of our friends. The fireworks.
Yes,
Monday.
there's a
this
guy.
Was the story Monday.
There's a guy who was in Maine, and he decided to set off some fireworks for the 4th of July. And
we suspect alcohol may have been involved.
We
hope.
In fact, we now know
alcohol was involved.
know, and we now have confirmed that alcohol was in fact involved.
Yeah,
which
right.
I think we all could have made that educated guess.
Somebody just says we hope.
Yeah,
right.
But he decided that he was going to shoot a very large firework off of the top of his head, a mortar. So he put it on top of his head, and he fired it off, and it killed him. It killed him. And that is...
Now, that's sad, but at the same time...
Look, it's sad. It's not that
dumb.
sad. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it sucks for his family, but you do something that stupid and you die.
Yeah.
What'd you expect?
I'd like to hear the eulogies in that particular case, right?
He loved his mama. He loved his daddy. He loved blowing stuff up real good.
Yeah. And he's one of the dumbest jerks that ever walked the face of the earth, right? Okay.
But he went out with a bang.
And then you remember the football player, Jason Pierre-Paul? He lit the firecrackers in his hands.
$60 million contract.
$60 million contract taken away from him.
Right.
Stupid.
Yeah, totally stupid. And then there's the alligator guy.
Oh, man. So this is a guy in Texas who was out in an area where some alligators had been spotted in this bayou in Texas, close to Louisiana border of Texas. And there's a large sign that says, "No swimming, alligators."
Yes.
Right? Very clearly. So this guy wanted to go for a swim, and so his final words were, "Man, F those alligators.
I'm going for a swim."
I'm going for a swim. Literally, the people that were somebody said the last thing he said were
his dying words.
"F those alligators, man." Jumped in, and in just a few moments, he was
eaten by an alligator. They got him.
They got him.
So he died too, right?
He died. He's no longer with us. I love, by the way, they're showing photos of this guy online, this story that's on People magazine. The photo that they show of this guy is him holding a fish that he had just caught, wearing a shirt that said, "This guy needs a beer." That's his open photo.
Again, I'd like to hear the eulogy for him.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
It's that classic, that great Southern eulogy. Hold my beer.
Yeah. He died doing what he loves.
Yeah, he died
what he loves best.
Doing what he loved best, man.
Whatever. Yeah. So, and then
sticking an eye on alligators, man.
Then his friend came back and shot the alligator.
Shot and killed the alligator.
It wasn't the alligator's fault.
No, it was an 11-foot, 400-pound alligator that this guy went out and hunted down and killed because you killed my friend, man.
Yeah, right. All right.
Alligators just doing what alligators do.
Exactly. All right. So I'm telling you, you think Darwin was right? No, Darwin was wrong. So we got the fireworks, we've got the alligator, and then today's story, Pamplona.
Yeah.
I mean, how many every year? Every year. Yeah. What was the latest count?
So as of now, 2 Americans and 1 Briton have been gored in the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Spain. And 8 other people were injured, but it was those 3 that were seriously gored and seriously hurt.
But I don't know whether I have not done any research on this, okay? So, but it seems to me that every year there are people gored every year, right, by the bull.
Yeah.
And it seems to me every year they're like not from Spain.
No.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Right. Americans and Brits.
Yeah.
I mean,
they go get tanked. And they go run and watch me outrun this bull.
The Spanish are smarter.
By the way, one of the guys...
They know you're getting a little space with a bull that has horns and the bull is pissed off. Chances are...
By the way, one person has pointed out on Twitter, where we're tweeting at BP Show, has pointed out that in both of the fireworks incidents, in the alligator incident, in the running of the bulls incident, they're all men.
Aha, see? This proves everything.
Which stings a little bit, but they're not wrong.
No, they're not wrong.
You never see a woman out there getting gored by bulls.
No, I think that's a very good point.
Women are out there winning World Cup championships.
Right. So I will modify my comment. Darwin was wrong about men.
About men.
I think it's a very good point. Now, there's another story today I think we could add to this list. Paula Dean. Well, no, Paula Dean's son, to be fair. But she had something
to do with it.
Yeah, right.
So back in 2011.
You might inform our...
She took this photo, and it was for a Halloween episode.
Can I just point out?
Go ahead.
I just noticed on the screen that CNN has a special tonight at 9 o'clock called No Laughing Matter about the Cosby allegations. Whole 1 hour special.
Oh, wow.
On that. No Laughing Matter.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. So Paula Dean did this thing for Halloween a couple years ago. This was in 2011. And she dressed up as Lucy from I Love Lucy. And she had the big red wig and the
this
like
was
blue dress.
Back when
back when she had a career.
Show, right, yeah.
And had a TV show. And her son, Bobby, was dressed up as Ricky Ricardo.
And of course, he doesn't just dress up.
He didn't just dress
Ricky.
up.
Yeah.
He painted his face brown to look like Desi Arnaz, Cuban, and put this photo out yesterday for some reason. Just put it out yesterday of her son wearing brown face, which she deleted after about 2 hours, and she fired her social media manager. But she said it was in poor taste. But what are they
all right, 2011 wasn't that long ago. This day and age to do something like that, I mean, hello.
This day and age, when you already lost your career over insensitive comments about race,
right?
It's so stupid. I mean, the fact, like, she should have, if that picture did exist, and she knew it existed, she should have burned all the copies.
Totally, yeah.
It's just dumb,
right? And I guess while we're thinking about the Darwin the stories, we have to add this sort of all builds up to Donald Trump, right?
Man,
who lost another round yesterday, literally, when the PGA said his classic golf course in Los Angeles,
yes,
where they were going to hold some final tournament.
The Doral, I think it is.
Yeah, we don't want to have anything to do with Trump. Yesterday, Trump also issued another statement. Monday, issued another statement, yet doubling down on and repeating basically his attack on Mexico, accusing Mexico of not sending their best, but instead sending criminals and drug dealers and rapists across the border. In Monday's statement, he added one more element, saying that they're also sending people who are infected with, quote, tremendous infectious disease. Back to Ebola coming across the southern border. Yeah.
Wow.
Donald Trump. Jessica's up in Caribou, Maine. Hello, Jessica.
Hi, Bill. So.
Yeah, what's up?
You got any fireworks, Jessica?
You're smarter than that, Jessica, I know.
First of all, that guy, one thing that might explain it is the fact that the guy worked at Disney World and he played Gaston.
I read that, actually, yeah.
He worked at Disney World?
Sometimes I have to remind people, and I hate to do this, but
yes,
Maine sometimes just demonstrates why it's just simply the other end of the Appalachian Trail.
A maniac speaks, right?
I wasn't born here, but I've lived here long enough, and I just sometimes that's all you can say.
All you can say, the other end of the Appalachian Trail. I like that.
That's not bad. Mm-hmm. Jamie is a Mainer. Our call screener.
A maniac?
Yeah, he's a maniac.
Right.
But he's on the right end.
You got any fireworks? No fireworks, he says.
Well, I'll tell you, it explains it all now that we know that this guy used to work at Disney World. I mean, anybody who used to work at Disney World, especially anybody who would put on a goofy costume.
My people. My people. My people.
The good old days.
Yeah, right?
All right, David Jackson standing by at the White House. Another South Carolinian standing by at the White House for USA Today coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, here we go on a Wednesday, July 8th. How about it? President Obama, not a lot on the schedule these days because, as Josh Earnest told us the other day at the briefing, they're saving a lot of time so the president can keep track of and jump in whenever he's needed to finalize the nuclear deal with Iran. David Jackson keeping his eye on the latest, too, down at the White House for USA Today and joining us on our newsline again this Wednesday morning. Hello, David.
Hello, Bill. They're also involved in the Greek negotiations, too.
Well, yeah, you know, the president... let's just start there, because until this time, the president's kind of been hands-off on Greece, right? Saying that, yeah, well, this is important, but those guys have to kind of work it out, and you American investors don't have to worry. But yesterday he kind of got into it when he's talking to the Greek prime minister. What's that all about?
Right. Well, I think they're much more worried about the Greece's situation than they've let on. But yesterday morning he called the prime minister of Greece and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who is the key player on the European side, and urging them to come to some sort of an agreement on Greece's debt crisis. They're having meetings in Europe this week, and I think there's a lot more concern in the administration about that situation than they've let on.
Because of the impact Greece then on the European economy and then on the American economy.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you can see the anxiety on Wall Street every day, and I'm sure the White House is hearing about it from that side of the ledger. So I think if the major, it's a small economy. Someone said that Greece's economy is about the size of South Carolina. Well, if South Carolina's economy tanked in this way, that'd be a major problem. So I think it's going to have an impact on us if Greece declares bankruptcy. It's going to create a lot of problems across the world, including the United States.
And it looks like, I mean, Merkel could really, she's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
She? I mean, she could just say, okay, this is what the deal is, and she's got that kind of sway. I mean, in effect, she's like the de facto president of Europe, isn't she?
Exactly. Germany's in the best. It's the largest. I think it's the largest country in the EU. I know it's the most well off. It's the biggest financial power in Europe right now, and what they say goes. I mean, if they decide that they want to help bail out Greece, then that's what's going to happen.
Meanwhile, on Iran, do you think that the president, like every hour on the hour, he's told what the latest is, or he's certainly very involved in those.
Very involved. Well, for his sake, I hope not, because there's so many rumors coming out of Vienna.
Yeah.
You know, when you get these talks are so complex, when you get right down to the end, everybody wants something a little bit extra in the deal, and so there are all kind of crazy rumors coming out of Vienna about what everyone's looking for, what the U.S. will do or won't do. So, yes, but yes, to answer your question, yes, I assume he's keeping up with the details, and there's some things he's probably going to be willing to do, and some things he's not going to be willing to do. So I'm starting to think it's very touch and go. I hear more pessimism from inside the White House than I have before on the Iran deal. But
yeah,
but that's just my own sense of it. I still think they're going to wind up with something, but I do hear a lot more pessimism than I used to on this thing.
Now, the president, I think, may be anticipating some problems. Called all the Democratic senators down last night to the White House.
We're eagerly seeing something leaks out of that meeting. Yes, it wasn't just Iran on that, but he obviously wants to protect his flank on the Iranian deal with the Senate Democrats. Right. There's also a lot of budget issues to work out. You know, the New York Times has a story about how the Republicans are trying to use the budget process to cut off money for a lot of Obama's executive orders. So, and that's a problem the White House is worried about, because all of which is to say we may be looking at another government shutdown when the budget year ends in September.
You were on the road with Jeb Bush over the weekend?
I was on the road with Jeb Bush, marched with him in a couple of July 4th parades on Saturday. So it's quite interesting. Got a much different view of the White House from that crowd than I do at the White House every day.
Yeah, I'll bet. Where were you?
I was in Amherst, which is, I guess, maybe two little villages. Amherst, which is a quaint little village near Manchester, and then Merrimack, which is a big suburb of Manchester.
And what kind of reception did he get?
Very much so. I mean, I think it's all about the name, Bill. I think that a lot of people respect Bush. They're intrigued by the fact that he's a two-term governor of Florida. He looks good. He gives a good presentation. But a lot of people are wondering about that whole third Bush thing. And
I know.
A couple of people talked to me and said, well, we don't want a dynasty in this country. So I think that's the biggest hurdle he's got.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious when his logo for his campaign is just Jeb.
Jeb.
There's no with an exclamation.
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
But, I think that's going to work for him, though. So many people refer to him as Jeb. I think that's kind of working for him. So I think that'll help out.
Look, it's like Bernie.
Exactly. Yeah. Who's also doing very well in New Hampshire. I mean, that's another race to watch. That's going to be a serious race, Sanders and Clinton in New Hampshire.
And in Iowa as well.
Yes. Although I'm not sure Bernie's got enough money or organizational skills to really do it in Iowa. Organization is so key in those caucuses, and I'm not sure he's got that. In New Hampshire, it's money. He's a neighbor. They already know him. He's a neighbor, and it's an open primary. So
open primary.
Got a good shot there.
All right. So how long before the U.S. Women's World Cup champions come to the White House?
That's funny you should say that. They wanted them Friday, but apparently New York outbid them. They're doing the women's team is doing the ticker tape parade Friday in New York, and that was the day the White House was looking at. So now I don't know, but sooner rather than later, I'm thinking.
Yeah, they'll get them here pretty quick, I imagine.
It's not a regular team that plays games like a baseball team or a football team. It's basically an all-star team. So these folks all scatter to the winds when we're not playing a tournament. So it's hard to get them all together in one place. So they want to do it sooner rather than later.
I guess they couldn't do both on Friday. No,
I wouldn't think so. I haven't heard that, but yeah, when I saw the New York news, I guess it's possible, but that'd be a busy day for them. But I think they want to do. I think they really want to do it this week and certainly next week, if not.
Hey, New York's not that far away from.
That's
DC.
true.
They could get here.
I'll tell you.
Ride the train right to that Canyon of Heroes.
That would be a heck of a day to go from the White House to Broadway on New York.
Right?
Would that be? Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll keep on top of that. And briefing today at 1:00, right?
That should be interesting. We can follow all the minute details of the Iranian talks.
All right, you got it. Once again, David Jackson, thank you so much for being with us. Right.
Thanks.
David Jackson at the White House, usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. At the top of the next hour, investigative reporter Michael Isikoff on a deal maybe with Edward Snowden. Peter?
Are you ready, Bill?
I'm ready.
Are you ready
I'm ready
for the savior for the Republican Party? The Hill is reporting
we have 16 of them.
Well, no, we're about to have 17.
Oh.
According to The Hill, they say that former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore is getting into the Republican presidential race. According to, this is the Richmond Times-Dispatch that actually first got the story. He says he's going to announce the very first week of August. So in about a month or so, we're going to get another one. Number 17, Jim Gilmore.
So all these people, they've just been, all of the 16, all the rest, right?
Yep.
Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. They're just the warm-up act for Jim Gilmore.
Jim Gilmore.
All right.
Here he comes.
Harold Stassen. Jim Gilmore.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go on a Wednesday, July 8th. Hello, everybody. Yes, indeed, Hillary Clinton gave her first big TV interview yesterday and said nothing. What have we been waiting for? Nothing new at any rate. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Good to see you this Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for being part of the program, The Bill Press Show.
Here we are.
Here we are in Washington, D.C., actually, our nation's capital. We're feeling a lot better this hour because the air conditioning has kicked in our building. Yeah, we forgot to mention at the beginning, if it looked like we were just dying in sweat here, it's because, once again, we came into our this building and the air conditioning was off. Don't they know it's July?
As Jamie tweeted earlier, you haven't lived until you've suffered through 2 humid D.C. mornings in a radio studio without AC.
Yeah, right.
It's not good, guys.
No. But feeling a little better today, and hope you are comfortable wherever you are, and you got to be, because we got a lot to talk about and a lot to cover here on the Bill Press Show this July. Everything from Bill Cosby defenders are still out there. Yes, indeed. Was led by Whoopi Goldberg. On one level, that's one big story. President Obama calling the Senate Democrats down to the White House yesterday to reassure them that if he makes a deal on Iran, it will be a good deal or no deal at all. He's not going to make a bad deal. And the president jumping into the problems with the Greek economy yesterday, calling both Angela Merkel of Germany and Prime Minister Tsipras of Greece and basically telling them, hey guys, get together on this thing, get this thing fixed. And Europe has given Greece until Sunday to actually come up with a solution. We got it covered here. Peter Rockburn and Lisa Murphy lead our team as always.
Happy Wednesday.
Jamie Benson ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Monty Kanzler here as our videographer for the day. Lots coming up here. Michael Isikoff, chief investigative reporter for Yahoo News, will kick off the top of this hour about Edward Snowden and other things. We'll have reporters in from Politico and West Wing Reports, and Katrina vanden Heuvel, the publisher of The Nation magazine, along a little bit later in the program. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Bill, I see you're not wearing your Apple Watch.
No, I don't have one yet. My doctor has one.
Does he?
Yeah, she, sorry.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people aren't buying Apple Watches. MarketWatch published some new research from the firm Slice Intelligence and took a look at consumers and how they're buying the Apple Watches. Now, when it first came out, when it launched back in April, they were selling around 200,000 watches per day. They've seen that slowly decline to where now they're selling fewer than 20,000 watches per day, and the number dropping below 10,000.
That's not good.
On some days. Yeah, Apple has a real problem on their hands with these watches, if you are to believe this independent research. Now, Apple hasn't addressed these numbers, and they seem to be happy with the way that the Apple Watch is performing. But this is not a good sign for them. They need to be selling more of these Apple Watches.
Again, my doctor showed me how she used it and the whole thing. I wasn't tempted. I didn't feel I had to run out and buy one.
Nope, me either. Boy, what a story yesterday morning as the FBI raided the home of Jared Fogle.
God, I know.
Best known as the Subway spokesperson, the guy that lost so much weight because he ate at Subway.
Right.
Yeah, eating Subway. His house, he was not arrested, but his house was raided on suspicions of child pornography. Subway has suspended their ties with Jared for now. They said they're going to put the relationship, quote, on hold, and they have suspended their relationship until this current investigation is finished.
All of our American role model is going down in flames.
I'm telling you, man. How about this? Hawaii becomes the very first state in the nation to ban plastic bags.
Ban them.
Banned plastic bags altogether. Now, they had gone, they had led the way on this whole getting rid of plastic bags and taxing plastic bags and taxing bags. They want people to carry their own stuff, but it became official yesterday. Beginning today, they will be the very first state where you cannot have plastic bags.
Good for them.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I know here in D.C. we have to pay an extra nickel if you get a bag or a plastic bag, but ban them altogether. You go to stand by any river, any stream, any bay, the ocean, what's floating around. Yeah. Plastic bags. All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. 11 minutes after the hour. I'm not a great big fan of Eric Holder's, but boy, he said something finally yesterday that I kind of agree with, that he could see a possibility somehow, some way, that the Department of Justice might reach an agreement with Edward Snowden to enable him to come back to the United States without facing maybe 35 years in prison. What's going on? I got to tell you, Michael Isikoff, he's on top of it. He's the chief investigative correspondent for Yahoo News and one of the best investigative reporters in the country and longtime friend. Michael, welcome back.
Hey, great to be with you, Bill.
So what's going on with Snowden? Is this for real? Or
Very good question. Certainly, it's pretty striking. I mean, Eric Holder was the Attorney General. In charge of leak investigations, and as we've discussed in the past, there were more under his watch at the Justice Department than any previous administration. And of course, he brought the charges against Edward Snowden, criminal complaint charging him with 3 felony violations of the Espionage Act. Considered pretty serious at the time. This is just 2 years ago when Edward Snowden's disclosures first became public. And here is Holder in his first interview after leaving the Justice Department, taking his new job as a private lawyer, Covington and Burling, and said Snowden's disclosures spurred a necessary debate, that's Holder's word, that changed policies. President Obama and Congress ended bulk collection of telephone records, which was the first and most important of Snowden's disclosures, and he now sees the possibility of a deal that, he says, could satisfy everybody, and that obviously includes Snowden himself, who is in exile in Moscow and being celebrated around the world as a international whistleblower and man of conscience. So to have Holder say that so recently after leaving the administration is, I think, raised a lot of eyebrows. Now, the next question which you're going to ask is, well, does that mean a deal is in the works? It's very hard to say, but if you read through the story we posted on Yahoo the other day, very interesting. Robert Litt, who is the chief counsel to James Clapper, director of national intelligence, has privately floated a possible deal by which Snowden comes home, pleads guilty to 1 felony, gets 3 to 5 years in prison plus cooperation. That ain't going to fly with Snowden and his team now while they're riding high, but it is an indication that there are at least people in the government thinking about some way to resolve this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned, and I should have too, that this interview was with Yahoo News, correct? I mean,
yes.
you guys,
I interviewed him on Monday.
And you're the one who
first day.
the one who broke the story. I'm sorry I didn't say that right up front. Now, And you also mentioned this, which I thought was very significant. He admits that a lot of good has come out of what Snowden did, right?
Yeah,
he
well,
broke the law.
I
He broke
mean,
the law. But we have this big conversation. We've had legislation. We've had congressional hearings. We had a presidential commission, right?
Yeah. It is hard to think of a individual comparable to Snowden, whether you want to call him a whistleblower or not, who has had as big an impact on public policy as he has had.
Except Daniel Ellsberg, maybe.
Well, you'd have to go back to Daniel Ellsberg, and Daniel Ellsberg didn't by himself end the Vietnam War.
That's right.
So,
right.
Not to diminish.
But I have to
Ellsberg,
tell you, I've raised this issue, Michael, several times at the White House press briefings.
Yeah.
And others have asked this directly of President Obama at one of the news conferences. What Holder said. He didn't praise Snowden, but even admitting that some good came out of what he did, that's more than I have heard from anybody else in the administration. Nobody else is willing to admit that.
I interviewed, for this story, Ben Wisner of the ACLU, who is Snowden's lawyer, and said, we haven't gotten this much respect from anybody at this level before. Mm-hmm. He found Holder's comments significant. Now, as I say, there's still a long way to go, and
sure.
Working through it, it's very hard to say because there are still people in the intelligence community who are just furious about what Snowden did, and thinking it through. I mean, what kind of message does it send to everybody else in the government if a deal were to be cut with Snowden? How do you bring another leak case against anybody? Because nobody has leaked the quantity of highly sensitive government documents that Snowden did. So there's you could see a lot of heartburn at the Justice Department, within the intelligence community, trying to figure out how you give some kind of leniency to Snowden and set what the standard is going to be going into the future on matters like this.
The question I had when I first read your story is, has Eric Holder had this conversation, or did he have this conversation on the way out with Loretta Lynch?
Yeah, well, he wouldn't go there, and I did get a comment from the chief spokeswoman for Loretta Lynch, who said our position hasn't changed. Now, you would kind of expect that. My gut is that Loretta Lynch is a pretty tough cookie. In my very limited exposure to her and watching her record as U.S. Attorney in Brooklyn, she's no pushover, and I think she would probably be a pretty tough sell for a deal with Snowden, but we'll see. We'll see. This has got a few beats to play out, and because at some point, I mean, here's the thing: for Snowden, he's living the high life in Moscow. There are people building statues of him around the world. He's given Skype interviews for money to international conferences. He's got his girlfriend there from Hawaii cooking him dinner. I mean, he's living pretty well. As long as Putin doesn't mind him staying there, he could stay quite a while in Moscow.
Yeah, but he's still in
real incentive to come home.
He's still in Moscow. Let's not forget that. He's still in Moscow. Now, Michael,
she cooks him dinner, but she's cooking him horse meat. So.
Well, this is great. Great work on this as always. We'll keep in touch with you on this because you're right. There's several beats to play out here before we see the end of this story. This is just the beginning of it. Meanwhile, you've been busy about something else, documentary filmmaker these days?
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, I really hope you have a chance to take a look. Uniquely Nasty, the U.S. government's war on gays. It's something we popped a few weeks ago.
I love the title.
A 30-minute film that just has some unbelievable material we've come up with on the historical targeting of gays and lesbians over the years by the U.S. government.
By the U.S. government?
By the U.S. government. The FBI had, this is what's amazing, talk about government surveillance and, all the uproar we've had. Do you know that under J. Edgar Hoover in the 1950s, the FBI had something called the Sex Deviates Program, in which they were ordered, all agents were ordered to collect the names of every gay and lesbian working for the federal government, file reports with the FBI on them, and then arrange to have the information disseminated so these people would be outed by blind memorandum so that they wouldn't know it's from the FBI to get them fired. It's right out of COINTELPRO, and it's a whole other arena of FBI abuse that the American public has never heard of. We got hold of the original memos on this, and it's just astounding stuff. But plus, anyway, so, and by the way, George Takei from Star Trek fame actually reads the voice of J. Edgar Hoover in this film.
Get out. Really? Oh.
Yeah. It's quite
I was going to say, we tweeted out a link at BP Show if you want to go check it out. We've got everything up there. It's
have
really
a look
cool.
at it. And after you have a chance to look at it, Bill, I'd love to come back and talk to you about it.
All right, we'll do that.
It's got some amazing stories in there that I think
I'll take a look at it.
Blow you away.
First, I have to ask you, did Hoover put Clyde Tolson's name on this list?
We have a side piece that deals with the Hoover and Tolson relationship, which is just absolutely fascinating. Endlessly, we could talk about it. They had what for all intents and purposes were a spousal relationship. Whether it was ever intimate or not, nobody will ever know. But if you see some of the pictures of Hoover and Tolson together, they are quite suggestive, and I think will give you an idea of what the nature of this extremely intimate relationship was.
Well, I say one of my favorite spots in Washington is Congressional Cemetery, where you will find the graves of J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson, not side by side, but very, very close together. Yes.
By the way, Congressman Steve Cohen was at the screening we did for this movie a few weeks ago at the Eastern Theater. Came out and says he's going to renew the push to take Hoover's name off the FBI building. It has spurred some action in that regard.
All right, Uniquely Nasty is a documentary, and it's we have a link up on our website at BillPressShow.com. Michael, we'll talk about that again soon. Thanks for being with us today. All right, good to catch up. Right. Michael Isikoff, Yahoo News, yahoo.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think
I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour, we're going to jump over to Brussels at the half hour to get the latest on the EU giving Greece a deadline. You either accept a deal by Sunday or drop dead, is what the EU has told Greece. By the way, on the media front, I just noticed just during the break. So Megyn Kelly is taking over at Fox News. Bill O'Reilly is still at 2.5 million a night, and she's at 2.2, closing in on him, million viewers a night. But in the key demo, that 25 to 54 demo that everybody goes after, she beat him in the month of June, 458,000 to his 431, and so far in July, every night she's been ahead of him in the key demo.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
That's always been a problem for, look, O'Reilly's got such a big pool he's pulling from that he's pulling the numbers, but
right.
Man.
Yeah. And by the way, so the other big news of the day, Bill Cosby, we reported yesterday about this deposition that came out wherein 10 years ago he admitted in a court case in Philadelphia that he had acquired drugs in order to give them to women for the purpose of hopefully having sex with them. But he still has his defenders led by Whoopi Goldberg yesterday on The View.
I don't like snap judgments because I've had snap judgments made on me. So I'm very, very careful. And, save your texts, save your nasty comments. I don't care.
Well, I think Whoopi should care. And by the way, this is not a snap judgment. This is a deposition given under oath by Bill Cosby himself. Not that he had sex with these women, but he got drugs in order to have sex with them and gave it to one woman.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
crimadvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that crimadvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, here we go on this Wednesday, July 8th. It's The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where we are here in our studio on Capitol Hill, and brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, those good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work, as you will discover if you go to the website at teamster.org. Just plain old teamster.org. Yes, the news of the big news of the hour, front page, New York Times, Washington Post. It's the number one topic at our White House briefing yesterday is what is happening with Greece. Will they be able to resolve this, and what impact on the U.S. economy? Ryan Heath is a senior correspondent for the European Union for Politico and author of Politico Brussels Playbook. Joins us on our newsline live from Brussels this morning. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Bill.
So, Prime Minister Tsipras spoke to the European Union Parliament this morning. Was he accepting a deal, or what was his message? What's the latest?
I'm afraid it was a little bit of a rehash of his existing positions. He was very passionate and defiant in the way that he delivered the speech, and he made some very good points about how previous bailouts were largely effectively spent on making sure banks didn't collapse, and they never really reached the ordinary Greek people. But I think he really did disappoint the Parliament by not coming with more specific details, not showing the way in which he was willing to compromise in order to get across the line and prevent Greece from going into formal bankruptcy. So we're in a bit of limbo here at the moment.
And they've given Greece, I understand, a new deadline, or a deadline to reach an agreement?
Yes. So effectively, Greece must put its detailed written proposal on the table by Friday morning Brussels time, so around about midnight in Washington, D.C. And then all the parties have to come to an agreement around that proposal by Sunday at the latest. And if that doesn't happen, the creditors have essentially said, we're going to pull the rug. You really are going to go into bankruptcy on Monday morning.
You know, you're so close to the scene, but you have to wonder, how realistic is that? I mean, they've been at this for 5 years now, and they think they can now solve it in the next 5 days?
Yeah, well, what we've seen is a lot of patch-up deals over those 5 years, and we've had 5 months of this now under the new government. So I think the referendum that took place on Sunday was a very clear message that Greek people are looking for something to change. They have put their feet down and said, we've put up with enough cuts, and we expect some kind of new deal. But the response to that has been that there are 18 other democracies in Europe, and they count just as much as the Greek people. So why should a much poorer country, a Latvia or a Bulgaria, for example, why should they be funding the Greeks, who are relatively rich compared to those former countries? And there's a lot of tension around those situations. There's also the ideological debate. You have the right-wing parties of Europe saying it's time for Greeks to take their medicine, we're not going to throw good money after bad. And then you have some of the more left-wing parties who are essentially saying, let's cool it down here. We know there needs to be reform, but we're not going to walk away from the Greek people. And the difference with a debate like in Congress in the US is you've got 28 countries, 24 languages, and more than 2 parties that you have to factor into a compromise. So it is going to be very messy, and it is going to go down to the wire.
Who does Greece owe all their money to? And I
really
guess
a split.
The follow-up question, if I can, is, and then couldn't people just forgive the debt? Is that one option?
Yes, well, you're absolutely correct. So at the top of the list is Germany and France, and then third on the list is the International Monetary Fund. But all that really says is that Germany and France are the biggest countries in Europe. Effectively, Greece owes money to everybody in Europe. And it's actually some of the smaller countries that would suffer most on a per capita basis. Debt relief is supposed to be part of these discussions. But what all of those creditor countries have been saying is we're not going to write off your debt unless you commit to a much more serious reform program. And what we've seen over the last 5 years is that Greece has been making big adjustments. But its governments, and not just this current left-wing government, but all the previous centrist and right-wing ones, they've just been going for easy cuts. They've been doing the things that undermine the economy's ability to grow rather than tackling those real cultural and structural problems that would lead to some long-term benefit. And we're starting to see all of the costs of those shortcuts accumulating right now. And so debt relief is really only going to be put on the table again if the Greeks are willing to commit to more reforms. But when people back home in Greece see that, or the way it's interpreted to them by their new government, that just seems like more austerity. So we're really in this kind of fundamental tension at the moment, and they're talking over the top of each other rather than to each other.
And this hasn't it become, Ryan Heath again is our guest from Politico, Politico.com, in Brussels with Politico, but hasn't this become really now part of a larger debate? I mean, I've seen that Thomas Piketty has jumped into this. Paul
Krugman as well.
Paul Krugman, right, exactly. So it's this austerity versus growth, right, kind of debate, the larger economic debate, and Greece has become the test case, I guess. Is that fair?
Yes, so Tsipras today, he said that his country had become a laboratory for austerity policies. And that is partially true. But the difference is that if the U.S. is having a debate between austerity or the big stimulus package that you guys put through in 2008, 2009, people trust the U.S. government to pay that money back, even if it does go into a deep debt. And that trust is now gone around Greece because they've seen those guys time and time again fail to turn up with proposals when they said they're going to come through with proposals. Yes, it wasn't this government, but it was the previous Greek government. They said they were going to do these reforms, and they didn't. And so now people are they're really a little bit fed up because a lot of these countries, they don't have any money of their own to give to Greece. If you are talking about someone like Portugal, they're expected now to cough up again for Greece, even though they're in their own bailout program. People like the IMF, Christine Lagarde does have a fairly hard line. I mean, some would call it a neoliberal line, but it's whatever it is, it's a hard line. But she's also got to turn around and defend it to Senegal and other countries in Africa about why she's putting African money into Greece when they're 3 times as rich. So it is really, really a tough call, and each side has good arguments. But at this point, it's got to be the Greek government that now comes up with something. Everyone's saying the ball is in your court, guys. If you don't come up with something, then time's up.
Last week at our news conference at the White House, President Obama asked about Greece, basically said, we're concerned about it, but, they're going to work it out, and U.S. investors don't have to worry. And then yesterday we were told at the White House by Josh Earnest that the president had spoken yesterday morning with both Chancellor Merkel and with Prime Minister Tsipras. So what role is the United States? Can you discern any active role for the United States in these negotiations, or is it just wait and see?
I think that the U.S. takes a constructive role, so it's kind of a positive nudge towards a solution. And I don't want to cast Obama as a lame duck, but he's really got a minimal role in this process now, where if he'd been able to intervene 5 years earlier, before all of that trust just disappeared, I think the U.S. could have had more of an impact. But now there's just so much anger and so much tension, and it's bound up in so many domestic political fortunes in all the different countries of Europe that it's a very big mess to unpick, basically.
Right.
So I think it's a case of the U.S. crossing their fingers and hoping Europe does what it tends to do, which is come up with that last-minute save at 1 minute to midnight.
Yeah, right.
But this time it's the one time when they might not do it. I've never seen it look this bad before, and I've never seen those angry looks that I saw going into the summit yesterday, where the ministers are just fed up with being called back to Brussels every single week for another one of these summits that doesn't produce a result.
Yeah.
And so they really have had it up to their back teeth now.
And the White House keeps saying that we hope and that the ideal outcome will be finding some way to keep Greece in the Eurozone. Is that same spirit felt in Brussels, or are people now ready to consider Greece outside of the Eurozone?
I think people want them in. That's definitely true. But I think they've calculated the costs and realized that they could afford it if Greece was to go. And the thing that we can't discount is some kind of middle-of-the-way Band-Aid solution. It's kind of the biggest Band-Aid of all, where Greeks do go back to some kind of drachma in their day-to-day transactions, but they formally remain in the Eurozone. Government transactions, and in some kind of waiting room or parallel currency where it's like you've got 5 years to sort it out and then we welcome you back in, or we throw you out for good. So I'm not sure exactly how that would work. That's something that we have to keep in the back of our minds as the clock ticks.
Yeah. Well, between keeping his eye on the Iran nuclear deal and keeping his eye on what's happening with Greece, there are nervous days at the White House these days, for sure.
And China, too. Don't forget the stock markets in China. That must be really giving people the chills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We talked a little bit about that yesterday in the program. And, of course, we have to throw Puerto Rico into the mix as well. Right. So all of the bad news hitting at one time. Hey, Ryan, great to spend some time with you this morning. Thanks so much for your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Ryan Heath with Politico in Europe, in Brussels.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. while you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, Paul Brandus from West Wing Reports joins us in the studio at the top of the next hour, and then we'll be talking to Katrina vanden Heuvel, publisher of The Nation magazine. The Nation magazine out today with a double issue with Bernie Sanders on the cover. Bernie Sanders Speaks is the main story, and The Nation will talk to Katrina about that. Meanwhile, the big media political news is of the day that Hillary Clinton gave her first national television interview since becoming a candidate yesterday to Breonna Keller, senior political correspondent for CNN. The interview was taped out in Iowa, where the former Secretary of State was campaigning. And, you know, she didn't say a hell of a lot, but here's first, we'll want to play some clips from the interview. But I don't understand, number one, what her campaign is all about. I must say, I think Hillary's campaign has been really deficient in many respects. I don't think she's being served well by her campaign. You know, why hide her from the media all these weeks and months? She is good in the media. She's good on television. She's good at an interview. Let Hillary be Hillary. This whole thing about, I have to spend 5 months first just talking to people. Can't talk to the media. In fact, we'll have a rope to keep reporters from getting anywhere close to her. I mean, it sets up this whole phony, she's like feeling that she's above politics, right? Or she's royalty or something and can't be approached, like you can't touch the Queen. And they have created this imagery themselves.
Yeah. If there's anything we've learned in the most recent campaigns is that the more exposure you get in media, the better.
I mean, just go out and be a candidate.
Yeah.
Do what Bernie does. Just go out and campaign.
Do your thing.
Talk to the media, talk to people, give speeches. Just campaign instead of this whole. But at any rate, so I think her campaign, disserved by her campaign, that made it a big deal when she gives her first television interview. But she was asked, to the interviewer herself, she did fine. I say she didn't make any big news, but she did fine. She was asked about, of course, about Bernie Sanders. Is she worried about him?
Well, first of all, I always thought this would be a competitive race, so I am happy to have a chance to get out and run my campaign as I see fit and let other candidates do exactly the same.
Yeah. I'm not sure
thrilled.
I'm not sure she's happy. That
she
Bernie,
sounds really happy.
Yeah, right. As happy is gaining on her in Iowa and New Hampshire. And I think for a while they thought it would not be competitive. They were hoping it might be a coronation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be. And so, that's what she's got to say. She's not going to attack Bernie. She's not going to attack any of the rest of them, and she shouldn't. She was asked this question, and this is a lingering question, and it always comes up around the Clintons, and that is the question of trust. CNN actually, what leads to this question, CNN just did a poll where 6 out of Americans, because I think of this drumbeat of the right-wing media about you can't trust them, they're sneaky, they're always up to no good, the Clintons, that 6 out of 10 Americans today actually say they can't trust Hillary Clinton. That's a big number. That's a problem. She was asked about that issue by Brianna Kelly.
I can only tell you, Brianna, that this has been a theme that has been used against me and my husband for many, many years. And at the end of the day, I think voters sort it all out. I have great confidence. I trust the American voter. So I trust the American voter 100%.
I think she's got a point on that, too. It certainly has been a right-wing talking point. But, I don't hear people asking, can you trust Ted Cruz?
Mm.
Can you trust Donald Trump?
Scott Walker?
Any of them. Yeah, any of them. They're not asking that question about them, right? It's just about the Clintons. So they have dealt with that issue. And over again, the American people have said, yeah, we trust them. They've proven that by their votes. She was also, of course, asked about the emails. She's got her answer on that down pat.
Well, let's start from the beginning. Everything I did was permitted. There was no law. There was no regulation. There was nothing that did not give me the full authority to decide how I was going to communicate. Now, I didn't have to turn over anything. I chose to turn over 55,000 pages. And now I think it's kind of fun. People get a real-time, behind-the-scenes look at, what I was emailing about and what I was communicating about.
Wearing warm socks, as you said to John Podesta.
Exactly.
Working a fax machine.
Yeah, a secure fax machine, which is harder to work than the regular.
I just don't want They're going to qualify,
So we got the
it's hard to work with the
regular.
machine.
And yes, then again, right, she did tell John Podesta to wear socks to bed.
We know where you stand on this.
I won't get off of my rant about people who wear socks to bed again, but she did recommend that he wear socks to bed in order to stay warm. So
they are funny emails.
Yeah,
she's right about that. I'm not sure that she finds them as funny as we do.
Right. It's funny that the Secretary of State hears on the radio that there's a cabinet meeting that she doesn't know about.
Yeah.
It turns out it was not a cabinet meeting, but she was worried that they were having a cabinet meeting without inviting her.
Yeah.
I guess my point is she did fine in that interview, and the campaign ought to just let her just be Hillary and just let her talk to the media whenever and wherever, just like everybody else, and stop treating her like Queen Hillary. When we come back, King Obama, what's he up to today? We'll let you know.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you're not going to get by with just 2 hours. You know, we have a big third hour coming up as always. And remember, you can catch our third hour at 5 p.m. Eastern on Free Speech TV, or 4 Central, 2 Pacific. Or you can catch it right away on Talker TV, youtube.com. Just jump over there, youtube.com. It's easy. youtube.com/Talker, Tawkr TV. Paul Brandus from West Wing Reports will be joining us. And then Katrina vanden Heuvel, who is the editor and publisher of the Great Nation magazine, to talk Cuba and Bernie Sanders in hour number 3. Coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't tell you that we have yet another Republican candidate for president. I mean, because 16 wasn't enough.
Yeah,
right?
Apparently not.
Right. And so 17, we'll tell you about that at the top of the next hour. And if not 17, why not 20? Why stop at 17?
Keep them going.
Yeah, keep
Anybody
going.
else who was thinking about doing
All
it,
right.
go for it.
President Obama has left a lot of time in his schedule today to deal with Iran, the nuclear talks there, staying in touch with those. He and the vice president get their daily briefing today at 10:30. The two of them have lunch together at 12:30. And then at 2 o'clock, the two of them interview Secretary of the Treasury, or meet with Secretary of the Treasury Jack Lew. So it's a buddy day at the White House for Barack and Joe. We have our briefing with Press Secretary Josh Earnest at 1 p.m. Paul Brandus covers the White House for West Wing Reports. He is West Wing Reports. He'll be here in studio with us at the top of the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night. And I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
16 was not good enough. Number 17 Republican candidate for president Jim Gilmore announcing yesterday that he too is going to run Stop the Presses. Jeb Bush and the rest, get out of the way. Jim Gilmore is here. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Wednesday, July 8th. So good to see you today, and so good to have you part of the program. The program being The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill, here with you on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide, here with you on Free Speech TV nationwide, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TalkerTV, TAWKR-TV. Thanks so much for joining us with lots to talk about. We're still waiting for the Iran deal. The EU has given Greece until Sunday, actually until Friday, to come up with a plan, and given themselves until Sunday to approve the plan, or else they're just going to cut Greece loose. Bill Cosby, having admitted in a deposition that he went out and bought drugs in order to drug women so he could have sex with them, he still has his defenders, Whoopi Goldberg, among others, defending him yesterday, saying innocent until proven guilty, even though the man himself has admitted what he was doing. And Jimmy Carter saying that were he alive today, Jesus Christ would approve of same-sex marriage. I mean, everywhere you look, there's lots of good stuff to talk about. That's why we need the help of one of our good friends today, Paul Brandus, who is the founder of West Wing Reports. He is down at the briefings with me every day. Joins us in studio today. Hello, Paul. Good to see you.
How are you? When you said were he alive today, I thought you were talking about Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
You've got to get your
Jimmy Carter is still alive.
You've got to get your pronouns in the right order.
Did I have was it a dangling?
You were dangling a participle.
Participle, yeah. Jimmy Carter is still at 90 with a new book out.
That's right.
I'm telling you, the guy does not stop.
No.
Well, thanks, Paul. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy leading up Team Press here.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Wednesday.
How about, Wednesday. And middle of the week with Jamie Benson. Ready to take your calls. You got any complaints? Don't complain to me. Complain to Jamie. 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding. I don't know whether we'll ever see him again, but thank God for Monty Kanzler is here.
Yeah, right.
As our videographer.
Monty's just moving in.
Right.
Cyprian ought to be careful.
That's right. It's only a matter of days, Paul, if not hours, before the USA Women's World Cup champions are at the White House, in the East Room of the White House. President Obama once we got down there. But it turns out that they wanted them, we learned this morning, they wanted them this Friday. But,
is that right? I didn't
but
hear
they
that.
were going up, they're having a ticker tape parade in New York instead. So New York won out over the White House. Wonder what that means at any rate. But so the president yesterday did the next best thing. He gave a call to Coach Jill Ellis.
Hey, Coach.
Mr. President, how are you?
I'm not as good as you, but I'm pretty good.
And then he also...
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach. Carly Lloyd, of course, the hat trick girl.
Yeah.
Right?
Carly, what have you been eating?
But he loves, you've been there as I have so many times, he loves bringing those championship teams to the White House.
Collecting those jerseys at
I
the window.
know.
Yeah. No, he's
got enough sports
chest of drawers filled with
jerseys
those
to
things.
clothe the Chinese army.
The Obama library is going to be, they'll have one whole room with
my
just
God.
sports jerseys that he's
And they're all so clever. They all say 44 on them. It's just very creative, all of them, yeah.
I wonder if he gives some of those to his daughters. Do you think? Maybe.
He better.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I would hope so.
Gotta have some of those perks.
We'll cover the waterfront, rather, with Paul Brandus here for the first half hour. Katrina vanden Heuvel, publisher of The Nation magazine, out with his new issue today. Got this at the door this morning. Bernie Sanders on the cover. We'll talk about that too, Paul. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Rodney Cotton is 51 years old. He was put into the Manhattan Detention Complex a couple of years ago because he had a parole issue. And he had a bit of a situation. Because of some medication he was taking for depression, he got aroused and could not get rid of that problem while he was in jail. And he told the guards what was going on, and they refused to find him medical treatment. They made fun of him. They said that it would eventually go away. 6 days he went with an erection that would not go away.
they warn you on that spot we've all seen on the network news.
4 hours.
Yeah.
This guy went 6 days. It turns out that a judge found that he is entitled to $750,000 from the city of New York for the pain that he endured during that stay, during the hard time that he was spending in jail.
The hard time.
$750. That's a pretty stiff penalty. You know what I'm saying? Poor Rodney. But good for them. The city's gonna have to pay him back all that money. Pay him all that money. If you're going to Australia and you want to have a meal in peace and quiet, you should go to Flynn's restaurant. Flynn's is in Yungaburra, a town in Queensland, and according to the Cairns Post, a local newspaper, that restaurant has banned children under the age of 7 from dining at their restaurant. So if you go in with kids, they will tell you to turn around and take your kids elsewhere because they don't want your business.
Whoa, really?
How about that?
Kid-free restaurant.
Kid-free restaurant. Nobody under the age of 7 years old. And the Daily Mail reports on a woman by the name of...
I'd be for kid-free planes.
Yeah, right?
You know?
By the way, speaking as a person who's about to get on a plane with 2 kids today.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
I would pay for it, too. Daily Mail has a story of Sarah Caldwell. She is in Devon, and she had a stroke a couple years ago. She went to bed one day, and she woke up with a very thick Chinese accent, and she can't get rid of it. Daily Mail has the whole story about her and how her brain has completely changed. She used to have a thick British accent, but it's completely gone. And she has a Chinese accent. She's worked with speech therapists. She has worked with doctors to see if there's any way to reverse it, and they say it's here to stay. She's just accepted it. She's a white woman, and she walks around with a Chinese accent, and she cannot get rid of it. That part of her brain has been changed forever.
Whoa.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, it is crazy. Okay. All right.
And the internet's a wild place.
I'm telling you.
All right, now I want to go back to your first story. All right.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I want both of you to write these letters down.
All right.
Five letters. Okay.
Okay.
S. You can do it at home too. S, SEPIN. Okay, so I told about these 5 letters were given to incoming graduate students, and they were told to rearrange those 5 letters into the part of the body that is most useful when erect.
Okay, I know this actually, but I can really see how you could get this wrong.
Those who
SEPIN.
Right. Those who spelled spine went on to be doctors.
Yeah.
Yes. Those who spelled that other word went on to be members of Congress. So you go. All right. You gotta be careful there. Hey, Paul. It's good to see you. Welcome to. So
I can't top. How am I going to top that material?
Yeah. Next
Can't
time.
do that.
Big news. Hillary Clinton gives her first TV interview of the campaign yesterday. I mean, what's the big? Why did they have to wait? She ended up not saying all that much.
I don't think she said anything at all. It was a real softball interview, and why should we be surprised? The person who did the interview was kind of a friend, connected to the campaign through personal, friends, that kind of thing. But she says she'll do more. I'd like to see her do a real interview with a real. How about going on, Bill O'Reilly or something?
But she's had a lot of my take on her. She's had a lot of experience. She's good at the media. She knows her way around. I mean, this idea that the campaign was kind of keeping her, even using the rope line, right, to keep her away from reporters. I mean, it makes her look like I said earlier, like royalty, like a queen, right? Come on.
Well, the Wall Street Journal this morning called her Her Majesty. Her Majesty Hillary Clinton, and said, Angelina Jolie is more accessible. I mean, she has this quoting her medically sealed arrogance of her campaign. She made these mistakes in 2008. And she says, well, I'm not going to repeat those mistakes. And she's not, but she's making new ones in 2012.
I think her campaign is giving her a great disservice.
But the one common, I think, theme between 2008 and now is this arrogant sense of entitlement. It's my turn. Well, it's not. She has to go out and earn it. And we were talking just off camera about Bernie Sanders. I don't think Bernie Sanders really has a chance, but it's good that he's cutting into her lead and keeping her on her toes, because I think it's a healthy thing.
She was asked yesterday by Breonna Keller, right?
Keller, yeah.
Keller.
Breonna.
There you go.
About Bernie, and here's Hillary's response.
Well, first of all, I always thought this would be a competitive race, so I am happy to have a chance to get out and run my campaign as I see fit and let other candidates do exactly the same.
Well,
I don't really believe that.
I don't either. So, we've talked about Bernie is a phenomenon out there. He's within 8 points of her now in Iowa. He's within 19 points, which sounds like a lot. It is in New Hampshire, but he was 45 points behind like a week ago. He's raised $15 million from 250,000 small voters. He's getting these huge crowds. Portland, Maine, and Council Bluffs, Iowa, Madison, Wisconsin, everywhere he goes. He's really striking a theme. Yeah?
Well, not only that, he really is, and I think it reflects there's something going on in the country, that whether it's this, the whole Occupy movement or whatever it is, but people are hungry for some kind of change. They're angry. I think there are millions of Americans, I think, that feel disenfranchised. They feel left out. They've been treading water economically for a generation. I mean, median income in this country peaked way back in 1999. So an entire generation, people simply aren't gaining ground. That's the central theme of his entire campaign, and people are responding to that.
No, it's economic populism, and he's saying basically, it's our turn. He's not saying it's our turn, but we cannot have a country where all the wealth goes to the very top 0.1 of 0.1%.
And she sees him as a fly on the wall. And she said when she rolled out her campaign a couple of months ago that, it's all about the little guy. Well, I don't really Well, it's all about the little guy as she passes the tin cup for tens of millions of dollars. I mean, she's raised $45 million plus another $23 million through these super PACs and all these other shadowy things. So $70 million. That's not the little guy.
No. What's happening on the Republican side now with Gilmore coming in, which is, I think, just a joke. He's the Harold Stassen of our days, I guess, right? But the one phenomenon, the next debate is less than a month away. The first debate is less than a month away. Are they going to ever keep Donald Trump out of that debate?
Well, it's going to be, 10 people? Top 10 people in the polls. Well, if that's
in the polls that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, I think he's in because, Bush has gotten a little bit of daylight between himself and, and the crowd behind him now. Walker and Rubio have slipped. Cruz has slipped. Trump has made up some. He's kind of picked up their losses, but that's a short-term phenomenon. He's sort of the flavor of the month. He's sort of like Herman Cain. Remember him, the pizza guy?
Oh yeah,
with his 999. BS back in 2012.
Shucky ducky now.
Yeah. So Trump is he doesn't have. People know the name. He's a household word. People know who he is. But I think that he doesn't have the discipline to last. His whole campaign is based on just fanning the flames of he picks fights with everybody, calls them out. And if you so much as look at him sideways, you become his enemy and you have no class and you're a racist and all these things. He's just going to implode, and everybody knows that. Right?
Would you call today Jeb Bush the nominee? If you had today,
yeah, I would.
Most likely be the nominee.
Yeah, I would. I mean, he is running.
Feels that way, doesn't it?
It does to me.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, Bush is running. Other people are maybe flashier, more attractive, getting all the headlines. And meantime, Bush just kind of quietly under the radar keeps kind of chugging along. He's made some initial mistakes with getting the organization together. He's getting those mistakes behind him now early. He'll have more money. He's the establishment candidate. The establishment candidate almost always wins. He still has to do some work in terms of separating himself from his brother's legacy. That's going to be a long-term problem. I think he's smart enough to do it. So, yes, I think at this point he has gotten a little bit of daylight poll-wise between himself and the other guys. At this point,
I think he's running a smart campaign. Just a steady.
He's not made any major mistakes.
Right. Paul Brandus here from West Wing Reports. It's westwingreports.com. How many followers do you have?
Oh, a couple 100,000.
Well, 200, we need
212,000, I think, whatever the number is.
We need more. Westwingreports.com.
I love them all.
Sign up. We'll be right back with Paul, and you're welcome to join the conversation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 26 minutes after the hour. Katrina vanden Heuvel, publisher of The Nation magazine, at the half hour. If you want to follow what's going on at the White House, follow me on Twitter, at BP Show, and follow Paul Brandus on Twitter, at West Wing Report. How's Obama doing these days?
I think it looks like he's finishing strong. I mean, he is up to
kind of on a roll, isn't he now?
Well, I think so. We'll see what happens with this Iran thing, which does not look particularly, good for him. I don't think they're ever going to walk away. I think there's this a third path for him where they'll just extend what they've agreed on to previously and keep on talking. I think it's going to be sort of the next president's problem at this point. But he's finishing strong though, and if you look at polls of historians who follow the presidents, they rank him about 14 or 15 out of the 43 men who've been president, 14 or 15. So he's no FDR, no Lincoln, but 14 or 15, that's not that bad.
And you've got a new book coming out about the presidents, about the White House?
I do. It's called Under This Roof. It's 21 stories about the presidents going all the way back to George Washington. It combines the presidents, the stories, the rooms in the White House itself, how technology has changed both them and the country. Comes out in September.
21 presidents. You have not been there covering 21 presidents, have you?
I'm not that old. No, I haven't. No.
All right. Well, the book comes out in September. We'll get you back in September.
Thank you.
To talk about it, Paul. And thank you so much for coming in today. I agree with you. I think the president's had certainly a good couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And if he gets anything close to an Iran deal, that'll be one more feather in his cap. Good to see you, Mr. Brandus.
Thank you.
WestWingReports.com. Don't forget, we'll be back with Katrina vanden Heuvel.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you how these carpets were made. You would no longer think they were. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies not to employ children. Goodweave by conducting surprise inspections. When found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Katrina found the factory. I saw him, I was scared, but Katrina put around me, told me it would be okay. Katrina Hamogar, a home carpet cakes run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Son are educated by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
And if The Nation says it, it must be true.
Yeah,
there
right.
you go. Hey, hello, everybody. 33 minutes after the hour. Here on this Wednesday, July 8th. Good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us. It is The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, where we're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their one and only colorful, articulate president, Leo Gerard, the good men and women of the Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing 1.2 million active and retired members. Check out their website at usw.org. What a great day. I opened the door this morning to get my Washington Post and my New York Times, and there also was my copy, latest copy of The Nation magazine, a double issue, and on the cover, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders Speaks, interview with our good friend from The Nation, John Nichols. And joining us on our news line, the editor and publisher of The Nation, another good friend for a long time, Katrina vanden Heuvel. Hey, Katrina, how are you?
Thank you for having me on this morning.
Are you kidding? 150 years. Wow. Huh?
It is when you think about 150 years, we were there for the launch of the telegraph. We've been there for the debut of Twitter. God knows what else we'll be around for, but we plan to keep on doing some fierce journalism.
Yeah, you know, and I must say, the 150th anniversary edition of The Nation is a real national treasure. And I noticed that it's still available.
Absolutely.
Right?
If you go to thenation.com, you can download it. It's maybe available in a local bookstore. We support independent bookstores around where you are. But I hope, Bill, I'm glad you said that it was a year and a half in the works. I think it's a journey through this country's history.
It is. And I was blown away, as long as I've been a subscriber to The Nation and a fan of it, I was blown away by some of the people who have written for The Nation, that I never knew, going way back to the origins and the abolitionists who first started the magazine.
That's right. The abolitionists, committed to the abolition of slavery, a small group, founded this publication in July 6, 1865. We certainly had a party a couple days ago, and Mayor de Blasio issued a proclamation making it the Nation Day. I don't think it had anything to do with what he says. He does say that without the Nation endorsement, he wouldn't be mayor of New York. We take that and ride with it. Though we have a tradition, Bill, as you probably know. We don't consider any political figures messiahs, so we welcome them. We lift up the issues. We welcome Mayor de Blasio's commitment to inequality as the crisis of our time. But we did have an editorial just a few weeks ago taking issue with broken windows policing in New York City.
Right. No, I know. You speak truth to power, no matter who it is. Now, I wanted to talk about two big issues today. One is, first of all, and my listeners and viewers know this, that I was in Cuba. Carol and I were in Cuba May 16th to May 23rd with The Nation magazine, an extraordinary trip organized by Charles Bittner, of course, of your staff, led by Peter Kornblue, who's a good friend as well and knows more about Cuba probably than anybody else. And it was such an inspirational, informative, and fun trip.
Good to hear, Bill.
For which I thank you. And I've encouraged, again, my listeners and viewers that if they want to go, they should go to Cuba. There's so much going on right now here, and no better way to go than to go with The Nation. And I know you have another trip coming up in September.
We have one in September and one in November.
Right.
Go to thenation.com. // Cuba.
And
part of this, Bill, was, as you know, The Nation for decades has covered Cuba in a way that I argue few publications have done or dared.
Absolutely.
And everything from the beginnings of the economic embargo to the Bay of Pigs story, which, if you check out the 150th anniversary special issue, Peter Kornblue, as you said, a great historian of Cuba and also back-channel diplomacy between the United States and Cuba, writes about how The Nation, in essence, broke the Bay of Pigs story, took the Times to pick it up, but there's a real backstory there, and we've covered the current issues in U.S.-Cuban relations, and I think part of what we're trying to do with this trip is, bring people over so there's an informed debate over policy, because though I think the president, his decision to normalize relations at the end of last year was a decision to recognize reality, and will mean that the United States will be less isolated in an increasingly important region. It's a changing world, but people need to go see it, and go see it firsthand as you did.
It's exciting, and I know you've been there on the trip before, but it was exciting last week to see the president take the next step, which is say that we're going to now have embassies in Havana and one here in Washington, D.C., So, this train has left the station. No matter what Marco Rubio says, there's no going back.
I know there's a big Marco Rubio op-ed in the New York Times today. But, I think Marco Rubio talks a good game about the future, but his policies are firmly in the past.
Amen.
And I think he's out of sync even with the Cuban-American community in Miami.
He is.
Yeah. So, in that sense, I think what's important is that engagement is good for both countries. Cuba's going to have a rough road. Economic reform, as you saw when you were there, is at the top of the agenda. But to take Cuba off the terrorism list, to begin to open embassies, this is a recognition of a changed world. It's a different world, and to live in the Cold War world makes no sense in the context of Cuba and a changing region.
What struck me a couple days ago, the president and the vice president met with the general secretary of Vietnam in the Oval Office.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, that marked 20 years that we have had different kind of relations, normalized relations with Vietnam.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if we've had relations with China for these last...
Yeah.
I mean, Nixon going to China, many of your listeners may not remember how truly transformative that was. And, come on, we've had relations with many countries. It makes no sense, this small island, quite remarkable island. Fidel Castro's still alive. I mean, he has to wonder, he's survived how many presidents, Bill?
I know.
But one hopes there is, the Republicans can do a lot of damage. They can fail to confirm an ambassador. They can block the legislation needed to lift the embargo.
Lift the embargo,
but
right.
the president has done all he can, in essence, with his own wise use of executive power. So I trust, this common sense initiative is going to open the possibility of a sea change in U.S. relations with its neighbors. Listen, the Pope is in the region in these last days.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary region. I find it fascinating the nation has because of so many movements that are arising in, Ecuador, Bolivia, Uruguay. So I think it's a moment to take stock. And as I said, when I was there last year, Bill, the first trip, in a meeting with the foreign minister, I was struck on the eve of the Summit of the Americas that if the United States didn't recognize reality, that we would be more isolated in the region than Cuba.
Absolutely. And, of course, the Pope's going to be in Cuba before he comes to Washington in September. Now, Katrina vanden Heuvel, our guest publisher and editor of The Nation magazine, thenation.com, become a subscriber like I have been for many, many years. Katrina, you and I have been friends and supporters of Bernie Sanders for a long time. What do you think about now seeing Bernie become a national rock star?
Bill, I have to say what strikes me is what you just said, which is we've covered Bernie Sanders for close on to 30 years or more. But how many millions of Americans are meeting him now for the first time?
Yes.
And I think it's a measure of a media which doesn't give Americans the full breadth of political views in this country. And I think Americans are looking beyond the labels and are finding Bernie Sanders' issues in sync with their own lives. And I think it's a very important moment. And it also, it speaks to the prospects of a renewed progressive politics, to the ascendancy of what I might call the populist Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, and the movements which have shaped this moment. So it's come together. I think even Bernie Sanders didn't anticipate the crowds, the polls, the support, both, in the rallies and in the fundraising. But his voice, whatever happens, is going to shape this primary campaign, and I think he'll have a bigger voice, whatever happens at the end of it, to begin to speak in a powerful way. And all power to Senator Elizabeth Warren. But what we've also known is that there are people who share her good views, and they also need to be heard. So it's not just one leader.
Right. And you mentioned Bill de Blasio, too, of course, who won on that. But this message of economic populism I think it's been the right message for a long time, but it certainly seems to be the message for our times. At least Bernie that's who he has always been. You're not hearing a new Bernie. We're hearing Bernie, and as you pointed out, so many millions for the first time, but it is resonating with the American public.
And he's a straight talker.
Oh,
I mean, I remember doing George Stephanopoulos' Sunday show a few months ago. Bernie Sanders was announcing that weekend, and he was the featured guest. And, he just answered all the questions very straight. And I'm standing there with Bush's former press secretary, Dana Perino. We're about to go on the round table.
Yeah.
And she's kind of in shock. He's so authentic. He speaks in such straight ways. Because I think we're so used to calculated sound bites that, again, there's something refreshing. And, of course, it's the issues. And, he's been consistent, not just on the economic populist, economic income inequality issues, talking about the 1%, even before that was a meme in this country, but he was opposed to Defense of Marriage Act. He's been opposed to the Patriot Act. He raises these issues in the Nation interview with John Nichols. We push him on, where are you on policing issues? Where are you on immigration? Because they feed and fold into his smart economic message, but he doesn't lead with them. But that's, he speaks to them effectively in the interview, talks cogently about the need to demilitarize our police force become more community, not oppressive forces.
And you're right. He ties it all together. And in the speeches, he's doing that. And it's very exciting.
I saw a proclamation from 1982 that he put out about gay citizens assembling and making their voices heard. And he said, yeah, let them have their voice. They deserve their voice. We should not interfere with it. We shouldn't stop them. 1982, think about where politicians were on gay rights in 1982.
Yeah. No, there's a consistency that I think you hear. In any case, it's going to be, the nation has not endorsed anyone. What we did do last year was launch a Project 45, which was essentially a call for contested primaries, in the belief that in a primary season, people are paying more attention. It's a moment to lift up ideas, to have a sharpening of debate. And if Hillary Clinton was the only candidate, I think it would be a different race at the moment. O'Malley, John Nichols yesterday wrote a good piece about O'Malley coming forward, we think wisely, to support a debt restructuring in Puerto Rico. So that, there's some really, I think it's, a moment of ideas. It's a moment of movements, as I said. And I find that exciting because, the nation has been committed over the years to lifting up and covering the social movements of our time, whether it was Martin Luther King Jr. doing an annual report on the state of the civil rights movement, or, covering, in essence, the beginnings of a Black Lives Matter decades ago, the racial justice then and now. So it's, on the eve, I will say 3 months before the financial crisis of 2008, we did a special issue called The New Inequality, 3 years before Occupy. So the nation, I hope, it's kind of a journalistic alert system, what's on the radar.
Right. Well, it's an exciting time to be alive, and 3 good reasons for going to thenation.com. 1, to become a subscriber again. 2, to sign up for a trip to Cuba. And 3, to learn the latest about Bernie Sanders and his great interview with John Nichols. Katrina vanden Heuvel, a great admirer of your work.
Thank you so much, Bill.
So appreciative of your time
Great to be on
morning.
This morning. Take care.
See you soon. All right, Katrina vanden Heuvel, editor and publisher of The Nation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
you wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, and then the rest of the Wednesday is all yours. Big news on the political front. Hillary Clinton giving her first media interview yesterday. They decided that interview would go to Breonna Keller. Used to cover the White House for CNN. She's now their senior political correspondent. She caught up with the former Secretary of State out in Iowa. Just have to tell you again, I thought the former First Lady, former Secretary of State, former Senator, did fine. And she's had a lot of experience. She's had done a lot of interviews. She does fine. I don't understand why her campaign has made such a big deal of shielding her from the media all these many weeks, and even going to the extent of using a rope to corral reporters away from her. And I think it gave a bad image it gave Hillary a bad image of appearing to be somebody who was like above it all, or considered herself too good to talk to the media, too good to express her views. Just let Hillary be Hillary is my advice to the campaign, and she'll do just fine, as she did yesterday. Breonna asks her, of course, about, look in the rearview mirror. Do you see Bernie Sanders catching up with you?
Well, first of all, I always thought this would be a competitive race, so I am happy to have a chance to get out and run my campaign as I see fit and let other candidates do exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you have to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
She'd probably rather have the field to herself, but, she's not going to badmouth Bernie, and she shouldn't. So what about this trust issue? Why is it that in the latest CNN poll, 6 out of 10 Americans, this is pretty shocking to me, 6 out of 10 Americans say they're not sure they can trust her. What about that?
I can only tell you, Brianna, that this has been a theme that has been used against me and my husband for many, many years. And at the end of the day, I think voters sort it all out. I have great confidence. I trust the American voter. So I trust the American voter 100%.
As I mentioned earlier, to be fair, too, this is I think this is an unfair question for her. It's a question, that trust issue, it's one that's been drummed up by the right-wing media over the years against her and against husband Bill. It's a question, you notice, nobody's asking, boy, do you think you can trust Ted Cruz? Do you think you can trust Jeb Bush? But that question always comes up when it deals with the Clintons, and I think she's right. It is politically inspired. But, in the end, I think the answer to that is, if you look at how successful they've been, is can the American people trust them? Yes. And they've trusted them over and over again. So she did fine on that interview. Yeah. Let her do more of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and don't make such a big deal of it. Just, be like Bernie. Just go out and campaign. Have a good time. Talk to crowds. Give speeches. Give interviews. Do it all. We'll be right back with a parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case. Turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, those of you regular listeners and viewers know that I'm not a big fan of Eric Holder's because he wasn't tough enough as Attorney General. He never went after those who broke the law by waterboarding. He didn't prosecute one single Wall Street executive. He let too many states off the hook when they took away voting rights, and he pursued Edward Snowden like a terrorist. But now, once out of office, Holder's actually said something I agree with. That Snowden actually accomplished some good. We are in a different place because of the Snowden disclosures that Holder admitted to Yahoo News. His actions spurred a necessary debate. Not only that, Holder said he could now see a way that Snowden could come back to the United States without necessarily being charged with a crime or going to prison. You know, that's the first smart thing I've heard anybody in the Obama administration say about Edward Snowden. But of course, Holder can't stop there. The next thing he's got to do is pick up the phone and call Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama. That's my parting shot for today, folks. We'll be back tomorrow with Brad Woodhouse and Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney from New York. Have a great Wednesday. Come on back tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.